Hi, I'm Somer Hackley.
And I am Zen Mak, and this is the Art of Search Hiring Manager Series, Hiring in the Age of AI.
All right, Zen, good to see you again. So excited
Hello.
for today's episode. Yes. So I am excited to introduce you to Ha Nguyen. So Ha is the founder and managing partner of NextStep. She's a startup operator, former chief experiences officer at Swimply, founding partner in an early stage venture capital firm. She's on the board of Women in Product. She co-founded the Product Leader Summit. I could go on. The list is lengthy. I feel like Ha knows everyone, everyone knows Ha, but this is because she is a super connector. She is so generous and she builds community and just you'll see she has this infectious energy and she is only smiling. I've only ever seen her smile and it's just the
You're so
best.
kind.
Now it's the truth,
That was
all true.
that was the kindest intro, but thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here. Great to see you.
Good to see you. Great to be here. So fun.
All
I'm
right.
thrilled to meet you. I'm ready.
Yeah. So we will dive in. So, Ha, you have said that networking is a muscle. It's something that you build over time, it's not overnight. And in an age of AI, where AI can make introductions, it can write outreach messages, even recommend who you meet, what does building your network mean now?
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm glad that you brought up the AI because to me, what AI can't replace is true relationships and authentic relationships. And so that's always been true since the dawn of time, and that will always be true in the future, no matter whether AI comes and takes all of our jobs and does all of the work for us. I mean, I could tell a little bit of my about my story too, just to
Yeah,
start
go
with.
for it.
So I've been in tech for 25 years. The first 16 years, I was a product leader, product exec. I was heads down building my product at a bunch of different early stage startups. And I never intentionally ever built my network. In 2016, I decided that I wanted to do a career transition out of product and do something else. And I just didn't know what that thing was. So I gave myself the permission of taking my first sabbatical and ended up like reconnecting with people that I had worked with from ages ago. I was early eBay. I was there from 2000, 2005. eBay went from like startup days when I was there to like big 7,000 person company. And so that was kind of where I started, was just reconnecting with people that I worked with at eBay. And in one of those conversations, it was with my old boss, Shreya Mahesh, who had just joined a venture capital firm. And she said, why don't you come and hang out with us here and work on or work with our portfolio companies and teach them everything you know about product. So I actually did a 5 year stint in venture as a result of that. And it was really then that I was consciously thinking about building my network and developing those authentic relationships because as an unknown product manager or product leader, like which founder is gonna reach out to you if they just don't know who you are? And so that was kind of the first time I really thought about it. And that was about 10 years ago. And yeah, we'll continue the conversation, but that's a little bit about my story of like not building my network in Silicon Valley intentionally for 16 years, and then the last 10 years more intentionally. Mm. Well, back to that original question, and thank you for sharing your history and kind of how that resonated with you. With AI, I've seen these come through as well, where, oh, please meet such and such person because it seems like you have an alignment. How would you then add the personal touch to that when you meet the person? Do you do it on video? Do you do it Mm.
Mm.
Yeah. on a phone call? Do you ask
Yeah.
someone to coffee? Like what are some of your tips and tricks for our listeners on how to really kind of bond and as a person?
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking, Zen. So I do think that we are over reliant on Zoom these days. And I would say that if at all possible, try to meet up in person. And somewhere we have to meet up in person.
I
At
know.
some
Here
point.
we are on Zoom. It's
No, here we are
okay.
in Zoom, but that's okay. But like, a few things. Number one, with Zoom, it's going to be a 30-minute meeting.
If you ask somebody for coffee or lunch, it's probably going to be at least a 45-minute to an hour meeting. And I think that that extra time makes a huge difference in terms of really getting to know somebody and moving it from transactional to relationship driven. And what I usually try to do, in the first 20, 25 minutes of meeting somebody is like just really authentically getting to know them. And so my first 20, 30 minutes is always asking questions and like, tell me about your story and what are you up to now and what's important to you and what's hard and how can I help and just really building that relationship. So I have this philosophy that I tell everybody about, and it's called being a go-giver, which is, caring about somebody else and giving generously and giving more to more people without expecting anything in return. And so that's how I view these coffee meetings is like I genuinely want to get to know the person that I'm meeting, hopefully for the first time, and then just seeing hearing what their story is, what common points of connection is, how I can be helpful to them before maybe even thinking about moving it to a more transactional ask. So if you can do coffee, great. Obviously, Zoom is better than a phone call. So that's where I would start.
I love it. And I know you're into going to events, building communities. I know you've built, a huge part of Sidebar, Women in Product, the Product Leader Summit. So, is there a moment or two or any examples you have of experiences through these communities that really showed this power of human connection at scale?
Yeah. Well, so I will say that I started building communities because I was trying to work on the things that really I was passionate about, but I saw a void, that there was, no communities that existed
Mm-hmm.
around this. So Women in Product, 10 years ago, it was really hard to meet other women product leaders. The Product Leader Summit is my VP product community. It was really hard to meet VPs of product when I was a VP of product, again, because I was heads down building my company, and then just realized that the VP product community didn't exist. So I was kind of trying to solve my own problem in building these communities. To answer your question, like now, fast forward 10 years later, after building all these communities, um, I walk into rooms and I'm like, oh my gosh, I know half of the people in this room, like in this 100-person gathering. I know half these people, and I actually know them. I know their stories. Like I will, you asked me about being a super connector. Like I will connect two people together. It's like, oh, I think the two of you should chat about this because this is what you have in common, and I think you'll really enjoy that conversation. Because I remember the time when I used to go to like big scale events and I just didn't know anybody, and I would like run to the bar or to the bathroom so that I could avoid conversations because I just didn't know who to talk to and how to break into a conversation. And I never really want anybody to ever feel like the way I do when I go to conferences. And so I try to be helpful. And the best way to be helpful and making connections is you actually have to know these people and community building over 10 years. I feel like I've gotten to know a lot of people. I've made a lot of connections, and some of those connections have led to people being hired, co-founders meeting each other, partnerships being created, and that kind of brings me joy. And every time I hear those stories from people who tell me that like it was as a result of my community or my connection, I was like, that is so cool. That is the coolest thing ever. Yeah, it just puts a smile on my face. So I'm always smiling because I think I'm always helping people meet others where good things happen. So.
That's awesome. Uh, if I were to ask you this question, well, I am going to ask you this question. Hiring in the age of AI, would you
uh,
then say what would be your advice for our listeners to in using AI to help them hire? Especially with someone with your type of network and background, it almost feels like you don't really need it. You remembered, you connected people, you know half the room, like that's fantastic. What about some of our listeners? How could they leverage the AI piece and do the magic thing that you do to hire better or hire faster or higher quality?
Yeah. So I'll split up into hiring manager and candidate. I think, you started by asking hiring manager. I think that this is true, right? So hiring managers will often start with like asking their network, who do you know? Who's the best person, right? Who's the best person that you know in product, in my industry, in my space, who's done this kind of work before? And I don't think that that changes with AI. I think everybody starts with that, reaching out to friends, network colleagues, and just say, who do you know? And so I do think that building your network kind of will help open the door to opportunities there. Um, I would say that AI makes it easier to screen, based on keywords when people are, you now have thousands of people applying for the same job with, 1,000 applicants in an hour or two is kind of like the norm these days.
Mhm.
And, there's no human that can possibly screen through all of that. So I do think AI helps with, surfacing interesting potential candidates. But the reality, and I shared this more recently in a workshop that I did, is that, there is a hidden job market, right? And and somewhere this, and Zen, this too, is that like most of the really interesting jobs don't get published. I think it's something like 70% of jobs get filled before it ever gets posted online. And then 85% of jobs get filled just through the network. And so if you're applying online, you may like that job might have already been filled, or
Yeah.
it's been out there for a while and they've already been talking to candidates that they've met through the network. And so I would say that that really like as a candidate, really tap your network to find those hidden opportunities. And warm intros are a great way to also like open the doors to meet either hiring managers or people who work at those companies where you can get an in, if you will. So
There's so much goodness here. I love that even with all this AI, it comes down to people and connection and being remembered and being in the right rooms, or if you're not in the right rooms, making the rooms and inviting other people into your rooms and all of that. And that takes time, and you've been doing it. It sounds like first maybe it was by accident, and then it just was like, oh wow, look what I've done for a decade. And but I love how it comes back to being that go-giver that you talk about. Is there, as we wrap up, any final words of wisdom, advice to our listeners, either on the hiring side or the job seeker side, like your biggest takeaway? What would you say?
yeah. Well, I would say the number one question that I always get asked is how do I build my network when I'm an introvert?
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't know where to start. And I would say that, networking compounds. In the beginning, it's going to feel hard and
Yeah.
slow. But just like compounding interest, and like if you put a dollar away every day for the next 5 years, you'll be a millionaire, soon enough. It's the same with your network, right? And so I would say first, like make put the intention in, which is if you haven't already intentionally started building your network, you should set that as a goal. Two, you should um, build the habits around it, which is you might have to calendar it. You might have to start beginning of the week saying like, oh, okay, like let me reach out to 5 people who either I haven't spoken to in ages, who would be somebody great that I would just love to get in touch with, or I'm going to, find 5 interesting people to meet. And I'll reach out to them either through a woman show or whatever it is. And then block off time, like, and you could decide, like, is it one new meeting a week and that's all you can do? Is it 3 or 5? Maybe you're in a job hunt and maybe it's 10 to 20. Carve out, block off the calendar, carve out the time, build the habits. And then one day you wake up and you're like, oh, with the last year, I've spoken to 500 people or 1,000 people, and that compounds for sure. So I would say my biggest piece of advice is it's never too late to start. So get started, be intentional, build the habits, and then one day you'll wake up and you'll turn it networking into a superpower.
I love it. And I love how you said the keep track of it too. Like if you need a CRM or a spreadsheet or whatever, just do it. And it can be on any goal you have. I think if we bring it back in the end to hiring, as a recruiter, I know when I talk to someone, I get referred to people all day. And when I talk to someone, I'm like, I don't have a role for that person today, but
Mm,
man, that person is awesome. So let me keep in touch or track or just somewhere, somehow note that don't lose this person because
that's right.
literally sometimes like 3 years later, I'm like, ah, that person, and it could be that, but because it
Yes.
was a recommendation, because they had their, 5 gold star endorsement, like I knew, and it all comes back to what you're saying, like the network, they came through someone in my network who I really trust, like I trust them in return, so
Well,
I,
you're also touching on something else, which,
yeah.
so this is, I guess, my second piece of advice is really think about in these conversations that you're having, whether it's on Zoom or in person, how do you stand out? How are you memorable, right? Because
Mm.
I mean, I have so many people conversations with folks, and of course, I have my own personal CRM. I'll take notes on a person, but how are you that one, that person that just stands out where someone's going to remember you, like
Mhm. Yeah.
without those notes, even a quarter or a year or 5 years later. So I really think about that a lot, and so when you started out by saying like, I don't think I've ever seen you without a smile. It's like, smile, like be fun, like have fun with the conversation, be curious, like see what you can offer them. So just people remember how you made them feel. And so your goal, I think, after you secure that meeting, is to make them walk away feeling like, wow, I'm just so much happier, or I feel better off, or, I'm just a better human being having met that person than before. So that I think would be my other piece of advice. And so people forget that. So
All right. Well, that's a great place to leave it. Lots of advice in here. Well, Ha, thank you so much for joining me and joining
thanks for
Zen.
the
This was such a
invitation. It
great
was so much fun.
conversation.
Oh,
So
so
much
great
fun.
to meet you.
So good to meet you, Zen. Let's grab lunch or coffee. I would love that.
Yeah.
Let's make it
Yeah.
happen, please. So great. Thank
All right.
you.
Take care. See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.